So my homemade rock tumbler, constantly a work in progress. I'm always trying to find ways to improve it somehow. You know, I've been running rubber bands on the rollers for friction, and I got the idea of trying spraying them with this Plasti Dip stuff to sort of give them a rubber coating. And we'll get it on there right, Michael. There we go. Seems like we got some pretty good friction against the rollers now. So I think I will try it like this without the rubber bands. I mean, if the Plasti Dip stuff starts wearing off, I can always put rubber bands back on it. I want to at least finish up this batch that's going through it. And yeah, I mean, it's almost done. It just needs a little bit more time with the cerium oxide. So let me get them back in here and get it running, and hopefully in a few days or a week we can we'll have some finished rocks and we can take a look at them and see how they look. So let me get them back in here and get this thing up and running again. Okay, let's give it a shot. The rocks and media and cerium oxide are in here, and we're spinning. A little slow, but we're spinning. Let me see, speed it up a bit here. Okay, I hear some action in there now. Okay, so let's just let this go for a few days a week and see what we've got. Hopefully they'll be done when they come back out. Okay, it's been a couple more days. This is a different project I've got going on in this tumbler, but I'm hoping these stones are done. And I'll tell you what, the Plasti Dip spray that I put on these rollers works really well against the electrical tape on the drum. So this turned out really good. So this is like I say, this thing's always a work in progress. I'm always finding ways to make it work better, and well, this seems to work pretty darn well. So let's dump these out and see what they look like. Hopefully they are done. All right, let's see what we've got here. I'm really hoping these are done finally. Okay. Mighty pretty when they're wet, for sure. The real test is what they look like when they're dry. So, take them over to the bench, we'll dry some out, and look at them under the bench lights and see how they look. But boy, they're mighty pretty like that, shining in the sun. Okay, let's go have a close look. Okay, so here we are. Let's have a look at a couple of them. This one's been a little problematic because it has such flat sides on it. These flat sides were not polishing well. That's much better. That's much nicer. Oh yeah, that is much nicer. It's still got a few rough areas. Some of these crystals here, like that particular crystal, which seems to go right through the whole piece, still has some rough areas on it, but the rest of it's quite shiny. See, where's my favorite rock? There it is. That's my favorite rock. Let's dry this out. Have a look at it. Oh, that's very nice. That is very nice. There is a good polish everywhere on it that I can see. There's no more areas that aren't polished, and it's perfectly dry now, so excellent. This is my favorite rock right here. This is the favorite one in here. Let's try some of these others that were giving me trouble. I'm going to keep them wet until I can wipe them. Now some people will put these back in the tumbler with some soap at the end to try and get the last of the cerium oxide off them, which is not a bad idea. And I might ordinarily do that if I weren't so interested in what they look like. In fact, I might do that later, but I'm going to wipe them with the rag here. Definitely, my experience with glass polishing tells me that if you let cerium oxide residue dry on glass, it can leave a residue that's very hard to remove. So, very well polished everywhere. There's a big flat area here, and I'm starting to wonder something, because I don't know if that showed up. Let me see if I can get the reflection. See that flat area right there? And I've noticed in these rocks, the last couple of times I've looked at them up here on the lab, under the lab lights, yeah, look, there's another flat area right there. What I'm wondering, see that flat area is not very well polished, but this rock I'm not too worried about because it's not very pretty. But, and there's a flat area right there. I don't know if that's showing up. I'm trying to get the reflection just right so you can see it. So it's making me wonder if there isn't an issue with my tumbler over there. Because listening to it run sometimes, it sounds to me like, oh, that's got a nice polish on it. That's it. That's a nice one. That's polished. That's beautiful. That's excellent. It sounds to me like maybe the rocks are sliding down the inside of the tube rather than actually tumbling down. And if they're sliding, maybe they're always sliding with one of the same edges against the inside of the tube. But maybe that's why they're developing flats. That's one thing I'm starting to wonder about my home-built tumbler over there, because it works so good in so many ways. But I don't normally see a lot of flat spots on these rocks that come out of my tumblers, so that's got a nice polish on it. The some parts of it are like a mirror, absolute mirror finish. The darker colored parts took on an absolute mirror finish in there. The lighter colored bands, not quite so good, but they're full of micro pits, I can tell. That's why they're not so well polished. Yeah, so I'm starting to have some doubts about my tumbler and how well it's working. May need to have some future revisions on it. Oh, that's nice. That is nice. So far I just got one stone that I'm not happy with, which is this one, which is probably the ugliest stone in here anyway. It's very bland and boring. It's just like solid black. Well, it has some very faint gray lines in it. But the rest of these seem to be coming out nice. And again, I'm going to keep them wet until I wipe them, so that the cerium oxide, any that's left, doesn't dry as a film on there. Nice, nice, nice. Okay. So I would say for the most part these are pretty good. Little piece of petrified wood there. It's got a nice polish on it. So I'm going to go through these and give them all a good wipe and a looking over. And I will sort them out into ones I like and ones I don't like, and we'll take a close-up look at them after I'm done. Okay, I've sorted the stones into two piles, well, three actually, because inside here there's still some shards of stone, and I'll talk about these a little bit. But I'll give you a close-up look at each pile. These are the keepers. These are the ones I'm not too happy with. And the shards that are in here are going to be used for media for tumbling for future batches. I'll just add them to this ceramic and plastic media. Hey, it's free media. Little stones, they're free. Alright, so let me give you a close-up look at what's going on here and why I have sorted them into these two piles. Okay, well, here's the keeper pile. These are the ones I really, really like. They're really, really pretty. There's my favorite stone there. Here's some of this flame jasper I like so much down here. Some of these other banded iron pieces just tumbled up so nice, so pretty, so shiny. Just loving them. They're great. Some of these smaller pieces which I think are pieces that broke off the big stones during the rough stages of tumbling. Actually tumbled up really nice and have interesting patterns in them too. So I pulled them out, and I'll keep them. I'll keep, some of these small shards because they're really pretty. But yeah, these are the keepers. These are the ones I really like. Interesting patterns, nice polishes to them. Look how some of them shine, just so shiny. And my phone, I'm not happy with my phone's video. It is not showing off these stones to their best effect by any means to the eye. They are much more pretty. The colors are much more vivid than what you're seeing on the phone. These are some pretty rocks. Trust me, these are some pretty rocks. Okay, let's look at the ones I'm not going to keep. So these are the ones I'm not going to keep. And the main reason with these is, well, some of them, they're just bland. They really have no pattern to them. This one here, I could see the gray lines in it, and I hoped when it was polished, the gray lines would pop out better, but they didn't. This one, this white one, the same thing. I could see there's lines in it right there. They're subtle, though, and I was hoping polishing would make them pop out better, but no, it didn't. The rest of these, they have a lot of pits in them. They're kind of angular. I mean, this one obviously broke off one of the other pieces of banded iron, and it just did not polish up nice. There's a lot of petrified wood here with pits in it. It is, some of these I knew were never going to polish up nice, but I left them in there basically to help make a load so that, everything would bang against each other and get polished. This one's got some fissures in it. This one's got some fissures in it. They're just not very pretty rocks. So these are my rejects over here. And in here we've got the tumbling media that I used. It's about half ceramic and about half plastic. And there's a lot of little shards in here. Some of these shards are pretty, but they're awfully small. Like I say, most of these just broke off of the big rocks when they were tumbling. And they just acted as extra tumbling media down here. I mean, some of them, like that one. Look at the pattern on that one, if it'll show up. Nice. But, it's really small. So, I'll just keep it in here as tumbling media. There's another really pretty one. It's like a mini version of my favorite rock there. But again, it's too tiny. So I'll just leave it in here as extra tumbling media. Okay, let's go back over to the Tumbler and talk about it. Okay, so an honest assessment of my home-built high-capacity tumbler here after finishing the first load, finally. And I'm emphasizing the finally, because this seemed to take a lot longer than it should have, in my mind. I have a couple of other tumblers. I've been doing this for a while. I'm getting a feel for how long it ought to take to tumble at each grit. This thing's taking longer than it ought to, okay? And there's a couple possibilities of what's wrong here. I'm really leaning towards the drum being the problem at the moment. I've talked to some other tumblers on our recent trip out west. I talked to some friends of ours out there who are big into lapidarian tumbling, and a lot of home-built tumbling equipment there, and I'm looking at it thinking, okay, there's a lot of room for improvement on this thing, based on what I saw there. And I was talking to Kevin, who was doing the tumbling, and he said he tried PVC pipe and he didn't like it because it wears out too quick. That was his main complaint about it, and I can see it's going to be hard to see. I'll try to get a photo of this with my phone in here, but I can see that the inside of the barrel is pretty well scored and thinned out in places. So after one load, it's like that. So I can see how this probably isn't going to last too long, in the long run. So that's a possibility. I'm also thinking that the inside of the barrel is just too darn smooth. And I'm thinking the rocks are sliding rather than tumbling over each other, which they really need to do. So I'm thinking that's part of the problem too. That's probably slowing down the tumbling action a lot and possibly causing those flat spots that I'm seeing develop on a lot of the stones. Those are unnatural flat spots. I don't see them coming out of my other tumblers. So yeah, I think the stones are probably sliding a little bit rather than tumbling. Now, speed. even at the lowest speed on my speed controller here, I think this thing's still going a little too fast. Now there's a couple ways I can fix that. I can change the pulley ratios here. That would be the easiest way. A larger diameter drum would turn slower too. So that's a possibility. There's two ways to fix that. I am happy about some things about it. The fact that it has run for months on end now to finish these stones without any issues with the motor or the belt or the bearings. The wheels here, the idler wheels, have worn quite a bit. There's a lot of rubber down there from where they've worn. I went through a lot of rubber bands before I found the Plasti Dip to paint these rollers with, and that's helped a lot with not having to, it lasted. I haven't had to do anything with it. I mean, I can see it's a little worn over here, or at least discolored. So I don't know how long it would last. I might have to recoat them with Plasti Dip from time to time, but definitely it worked, and I didn't have to, replace rubber bands every couple of days like I had been doing to get the friction going between these rollers and the drum. So yeah, that worked. Wrapping the ends of the drum with the wide black electric tape, a few wraps of that helped keep the friction up too. I had some vinyl on there, and that worked for a while until it started delaminating. But the electric tape, that's lasted for a long time, and it looks like it's still good to go for a while longer. So if I could just work on some of the deficiencies on this thing, I think I can make it work really well. I think I need a larger diameter drum made of a different material, or lined with a different material anyway, than the PVC. Because I think the PVC is just too smooth and too slippery and too easily eroded by the rocks and the grit in there. So I'll need to work on that. Maybe change the pulley ratio. Or I might just rebuild this entirely. Looking at Kevin's setup out in Wyoming, I got a lot of ideas. I might just, start over with a clean slate and rebuild this entirely and do things more like the way he does them. So that's a possibility too. So stay tuned for further developments on that. But on the whole, I would say this was a worthwhile exercise. It was built from junk. It cost me nothing, basically. And hey, it polished some stones. It just took a little while longer than I would have liked. Okay, well, if you found this series of videos on my homemade rock tumbler interesting, educational, informative, inspirational, whatever, give them a like, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe to see more future videos. There'll be more videos on rock tumbling, lapidary, gold recovery, whatnot. They're coming down the pike fast and furious, so subscribe to see those future videos. Check out my second channel, Electro Geek 64. If you're all interested in electronics or retro computing, there's good content there you might find interesting. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching this one. Bye.